Hello guys, this is Oroth and a warm welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to show an updated dungeon build for Necromancers, and I'm also going to show you in the end of this video some alterations you can do so that you can also use it in open world farming. So let us dive straight into it and start by looking at the skills I'm using. So for the primary attack I'm using Bone Spear. For the first skill slot I'm using Command Golem. For the second skill slot I use Skeletal Mage, for the third skill slot I use Bone Armor, and for the fourth and final skill slot I use Wraith Form. So let's continue and look at the essences. First of all I'm using the new helmet essence, and it's called Decrepit Visage, and what it says is that your golem roars once every 2 seconds, extending the duration of your nearby skeletal mages by 2 seconds. So what this basically does is that if I will summon this golem, you will see that there will be a roar every 2 seconds. And this roar will prolong the duration of any of my skeletal mages that are nearby. So every 2 seconds it prolongs the duration of the skeletal mages for 2 seconds. If we look on the chest piece, I'm using Stormcaller's Bones. You know about this one already probably. What it says is that Bone Armor now generates a pulse that wreathes you and your summons in lightning, causing electric links to form that damage enemies. So now if I use Bone Armor, you will see that there are these arcs between me and my summons, and the more summons I have up at the same time, the more of these electric arcs will happen. So this is just to add some extra damage output when we are attacking a boss, for example. In the shoulder slot I'm using the new essence called Depletion and Renewal, and what it says is that Skeletal Mage grows in size and strength the longer it is active, increasing its damage by 45% after 5 seconds. So here if I summon a summon like a Skeletal Mage now, you will see that it grows over time, and after 5 seconds it has reached maximum size and it will deal more damage. In this slot there is also another very viable option that's called Executive Discontent. This other shoulder actually deals more damage when you have all of your skeletal mages up, but in dungeons there are sometimes elevators and other types of events that kills off your summons, and what's good about this shoulder is that it gives us, when it's awakened, a cooldown effect of 10% on the skeletal mages. So maybe the damage goes down a little bit, but I think it's worth it because we don't really need to maximize the damage in a dungeon. I'd rather have the extra cooldown. But of course this is optional, so you can feel free to use the other shoulder as well. And in some dungeons there are not that many events that kills off your summons, or not any at all, and in that case maybe Executive Discontent will perform better. But overall I prefer this one just for the lower cooldown. The next essence we're going to look at is the Pants essence, and here I use Bleak Augury, and what it says is that Wraith Form now increases your movement speed and evasion rating, allowing you to move unhindered through enemies and generate corpses when you pass through them. So the main reason for using this one is that I want to run as fast as possible when I'm doing dungeons. So these pants are not the top option when it comes to DPS, but this is not what we're looking for in dungeons. We want to be able to move from objective to objective as fast as possible. And this Wraith Form also has 100% uptime, so I will always move super fast. In the first main hand slot I use the new golem called Rotted Harvest, and what it says is that Command Golem now summons a Devouring Golem with unlimited duration that consumes nearby corpses to increase its size, maximum life, damage and attack range, while dealing damage and slowing nearby enemies. What I really like about this golem is that it has a huge area of effect, and when it's eating corpses it becomes bigger and bigger. So this area of effect is super big, which will help me to kill off a lot of adds in big rooms. Also it has unlimited duration, so it's quite simple to use, because usually you only have to summon it once and then it will just follow you, so you don't have to re-summon it. So yeah, it's a really cool essence. It's not the best golem for single target DPS, but that's not what we're looking for in dungeons most of the time. If we look on the first offhand essence, I'm using the new one called Black Wall, And what it says is that Skeletal Mage is now mobile and channels beams at multiple nearby enemies that deal more damage the longer they hit the same target. So what this basically does is that now our Skeletal Mages are mobile, so they can follow with us. So we can have up to 6 of these mages at the same time, and since we have the new helmet, the duration will not wear out. So it's a very good essence. I have to say though that this is not the most damaging essence. There are other options that are more viable in terms of damage output. For example, you could use Visceray's Coffin Slid. It's a lot higher single target DPS. I know that some people has experimented with Reapers, and Reapers they are okay, but the problem with Reapers is that they have a very high cooldown. So in dungeons, when you go to elevators, the Reapers will die and it takes too long to summon them again. So for me it's not as good as the new offhand here for dungeons. And when it comes to DPS output, the Reapers are also weaker than the mages from Visceray's Coffin Slid. And in the instances where we want the most DPS, that's usually in the gauntlet, and then the mobility of the mages are not that important. So therefore Reapers is not my go-to choice when it comes to DPS output. So this was just a little background on why I chose this offhand. If we look on the second main hand, I use Wicked Husker. And what it says is that the Bone Spear also destroys enemy armor for 3.2 seconds, increasing the critical hit damage they take by 20%. So now if I go to the dummy here, you will see now above the dummy, if I hit it with my Bone Spear, it will have this broken shield above it. So this is not a normal armor break, this is a critical hit damage armor break. So it stacks with other types of armor breaks as well, so that's a good thing. In the final offhand slot, I use Dominance from Dust. And what it says is that your golem will split into 2 smaller golems when it dies. And yeah, here is a cool trick. You can actually not kill off your golem in any dungeons because yeah, they don't deal enough damage to the golem. But there is a cool trick, so I'm gonna show you now. If I go to my armory, I have created a different setup where I have this helmet instead. Let me switch to it and show you. What this does is that when I summon a golem, it will take some life from me and increase the damage of the golem. But this is not the point here. What I want is that when I switch in my armory again to the build I'm gonna use, it will kill the golem. So if you see now, I have this big golem with the red fists, and this is my main golem. And when I go to the armory and I switch to the build I'm gonna use, the big guy will die. So you can see now that he died, and now I have 2 small golems. And you see that both of these golems, they do a roar. So I can have 3 golems that do this roar that prolongs the duration of my mages. And yeah, this is especially useful in open world farming, because if I have mages up and I start to run like this, it will sometimes happen that the mages are out of range from the golem, so that after some time the mages will start to die because they don't have enough duration. But now, since I have 3 golems, they will recharge the duration a lot quicker, so it doesn't matter if a mage misses a few recharges of this roar, because whenever they are within range they will gain 6 seconds instead of 2 seconds, because they get it 3 times. So that's why I use this offhand. So yeah, this is just a cool way to easily kill off your main golem to get these 2 small golems. Let us continue by looking at the set I'm using. I'm using 4 pieces of Shepherd. This is to increase my critical hit chance and the damage from my summons. And I also use this 4 pieces of Vitu to increase the duration of the bone armor, for example, and some legendary gems, and also to increase the attack speed of my summons. And I can increase the attack speed of my summons when I'm using the bone armor, of course, but also I have this eternal affix that gives my skeletal mage a shield whenever I summon it, and that also counts as a buff. So whenever I summon a new skeletal mage, it gets the Vitu buff. and it also gets the Bottled Hope buff, but we will look at the legendary gems soon. Yeah, let's dive straight into them now actually. So the first legendary gem I'm using is Blood-Soaked Jade, and then I use Mother's Lament, I use Bottled Hope, I use Roiling Consequence, Echoing Shade, Pain Clasp, Bloody Reach, and I also use Berserker's Eye. So basically this is the go-to DPS package for range summoner classes like Necromancers, for example. So this is a superb gem combination if you want to try these types of builds. Let's also take a look at my Reforges. I have the typical Reforges for summoners. So I have damage done by my summons, I have duration of beneficial effects, I have critical hit damage, skill damage, and primary attack damage. Let's also take a quick look at my Paragon. I'm using the Brawler category, and I use Defender of Sanctuary, Combat Tricks, Heavy Armor, Rugged, and Combat Expertise. And the main reason for this is that I want to increase my size as much as possible, because when I'm bigger I also move faster. I also have combat tricks here that allows me to move unhindered through enemies at all time. So it's just an overall good option both for dungeons and open world farming, because movement speed is essential. Let's also take a quick look here at the Warband remnants, and here I'm using the Protector Room. And the reason for this is because I want to get this Shepherd's Burden remnant that increases my size, just for the same reason as I just explained. The bigger I am, the faster I can run. Let's also take a quick look at my main familiar here. The main importance is to have Lingering Wounds, because this armor break is one of the strongest in the game. I also use it on the Brood Talon because it can have high insight, and here I have maximum insight, which will increase the potency of this skill as much as possible. Let's also make a quick look at how I would alter this build if I were to run open world. So what I would do is that first of all I would switch out Wicked Husker, and I would instead put in the Defiling Swarm, and this is a Grimscythe essence, and then I switch out the Bone Armor for Grimscythe. So what happens now is that whenever I use Grimscythe, I have two of these rotating scythes around me. So it's good when I'm running through packs, it will kill off the packs. And I also switch out some legendary gems. So instead of Bloody Reach, I put in Volatility Shard. Instead of Berserker's Eye, I put in Viper's Bite. And finally, instead of Echoing Shade, I put in Igneous Scorn. And the reason for this is because I want to apply dots to all of the monsters in a pack, so that they will die even if I keep running. And that's also why I'm using Volatility Shard and the Igneous Scorn, because it will inflict explosions that kill off whole packs. So it's super effective. So what we're gonna do next is that we're gonna take a look at a couple of dungeons where I explain how I play the build and why I'm doing certain choices. And we will also do the same for some open world farming, so that you can see the build in action. So let's dive straight into the first dungeon. So here we find ourselves in Silent Monastery, and the first thing I do whenever I enter a dungeon is that I summon a skeletal mage immediately, because the key here is to get all of my mages up as fast as possible. I'm checking the cooldown, and whenever it's ready I'm summoning another one, because I can have a maximum of 6. You could also notice that I showed you earlier how I create 2 small golems, and the good thing is that whenever I teleport to a new zone or when I teleport into a new dungeon, these golems will still stay alive. Unfortunately, whenever I teleport, all of the mages dies, and I believe that this is maybe something that they should fix, because the golems, they don't die, and also the normal skeletons, they don't die, so I don't think that the skeletal mages should die either when you teleport. If they fix this, this build will become even more efficient, because now we always have to re-summon all of the mages whenever we enter a dungeon. In some dungeons, as I mentioned earlier, there is no event that will kill off the summons, but in some dungeons, like if we take the elevator in Tomb of Fahir, for example, when the elevator starts, it will kill off all of the summons, and this happens in many other dungeons as well. And this is the reason why I use the new shoulder essence instead of executive discontent, as I explained earlier, because the executive discontent is always, it's only better when all of the mages are up. But I really hope that they fix this somehow, and that we in the future will not have our summons killed whenever we step onto an elevator, because it doesn't make any sense, right? So as you can see here, the damage output is fine. We are running very fast through the dungeon, so it's very efficient dungeon build for sure. And now we're also gonna take a look here at Forgotten Tower, because I think that this dungeon will highlight how well it performs when there's a lot of ads that has to be killed. And as we can see there in the beginning, once again I have to start summoning my mages, and yeah, this might be the only downside to this build, as I said, because it takes a little time before I get the juice up. But once I get going, we will see now that it's very, very efficient. And here we can also see the golem at work. We can see that the AoE effect is getting bigger now as the golem grows. So it's very easy for us to clear these big rooms, and also the mages themselves do AoE damage, so it's really quick to kill off these packs. So if you look now on the counter how many more I have to kill, we will see that it will count down very, very fast. So yeah, I really like this setup for dungeons. It reminds me a little bit of the previous Demon Hunter build that I highlighted with summons. And now we reach the boss here, and hopefully we can melt it down in one phase. Let's see how it goes. And action, here we go. And yeah, I mean, you could do alterations to this build that makes it even more damage, but then you would maybe have to sacrifice a little bit of movement speed. And personally, I think that movement speed is what you should look for the most. Also, now we found ourselves in open world farming, so let's just take a little look at how it performs. And what I really like about this is that there is no cost time. So when the only skill that I use here in open world farming that has cost time is the mages. But once I have the mages up, I don't really have to use the skill a lot. Again, sometimes the mages bugs a little bit, so I have to summon another one. But that's almost never. And what's also good is that the golem jump has quite far range, and it also has no cost time. If we compare it with like a molten golem, for example, this one is a lot more efficient in open world farming thanks to no cost time. So let's see what we can do. We can, for example, jump in with a golem like that. So instead of us having to run to that pack, we can jump in with the golem instead, which will allow us to take a shorter route. And it's very simple and easy to use. We just have to click Grimscythe whenever it's ready on cooldown, and click Wraithform whenever it's ready on cooldown. And sometimes we jump with the golem, and that's it. I have to say that, yeah, this is a very efficient open world farming build for Necromancers. There are other viable builds as well that are equally fast, because the key here is that we need to use the Wraithform for the movement speed. If they were to introduce some new tools for the Necromancers that would increase our efficiency in open world farming, it would have to be new dash capabilities, because that's the only thing where we fall a little bit behind some other classes. If we take the Crusader, for example, it's also very fast in open world farming, but you also have this dash horse if you want to go as fast as possible. And this is not really something you can do with the Necromancer, but as you can see here, it's still super efficient in open world farming. So I really hope that you liked this build, and let me know how it goes for you when you try it out. And before we say goodbye, I of course want to wish you a very nice day or a very nice evening wherever you are. And to all of my clan members in Nyx, I would also like to say Voruk Nyx, Sholak Zulu. So, bye bye!
If a boy or if a girl,
subscribe to Oro's channel.
let him take you to his world.
Subscribe to Oro's channel.
The best choice you will ever make.
Subscribe to Oro's channel.
Hit the bell, a piece of cake.
Subscribe to Oro's channel.
Let me tell you one more time.
Subscribe to Oro's channel.
All the answers you will find.
Subscribe to Oro's channel.